There's a verse in Isaiah, and it's Isaiah 51 verse 1, and it says, "Look to the rock from which you were hewn, and to the quarry from which you were digged." I'm not sure digged is a proper word in English. Anyway, I think that's an older version, but look to the quarry which you were cut from. Look to the rock from which you were chiseled out of. And I was watching something yesterday. It was about one of these really old copper mines, a very, very ancient copper mine that was found in Israel. And there's a lot of discussion, but they reckon they dated it to the time of Solomon. And people had a fairly simple way of digging into the rock and then finding copper. And of course, copper, when it comes to the surface, to the air, it goes green, so you can see bits of copper exposed and sort of bits of green in the rock. And if you're digging out of a rock, if you're tunneling and mining something, there's quite a lot of effort, but it's very important that people understand where it's come from as well. It's quite important that they understand where the source is. What's the source like? Is it a pure source? Is it easy to get hold of from there? You can often find the type of rock or type of metal and then trace it back and say, okay, where does that come from? Where's the source of that? What's that rock originating from? And is it a local place? Is it a place far away? It's a big part of how they try and work out where pottery comes from, or metal objects. They try and look at where it was sourced from, and that can tell you quite a lot, really, in the whole field of archaeology, the way in which people try and understand the process and all that kind of thing. So we have to try and find a clarity for ourselves about where we've come from. Where's our faith come from? What's the source? What does it look like in the early part of the Bible? What are the figures of that have really modelled what faith looks like? And it talks about Abraham and Sarah in Isaiah 51. So what were those people like? They took steps of obedience that didn't know where they were going, but they were following in obedience. They had to really trust God about the way ahead. Not everything was clear. Where is your rooted faith from? And who are the figures, who are the people that have modelled that for you? And what kind of environment did they set for you? What kind of source have they given you that gives you a pattern, a model to follow in faith? Maybe there's people that have really helped you and guided you in your early life as a Christian, or they're in that process at the moment. You're maybe a younger Christian, or you're just beginning to come into a place where you discover the reality of Jesus, and you're needing to get people around you who are going to model what faith looks like, how that plays out in everyday life. So go and look for those kind of people that will help mentor you and develop you. And look to the Bible as well, those people who showed what faith looks like. Look at the Bible characters. Have a look at how they lived out their lives. They made mistakes, that's for sure. How did they trust God? How did they learn how to trust God? Apart from the mistakes, how did they move forward from them? Learning to live and walk in faith, in a confidence with God. Look to those sources. Dig into them. Find opportunities to dig into God's word. May we find ways in which to dig into those people's lives and the places in the Bible that teach us so much about what faith looks like. I pray that we'll be mining this week into those things and learning so much from them.